The root of all drama is disobedience. A character or situation doesn't obey the given rules, and the story emerges. Problems with your computer are dramatic, but not disobedient. The culprit for technology issues is change. When something goes awry with your computer, the question you must ask is what has changed. Have you added a peripheral? Was a software update recently installed? Did you change a setting? When you consider these changes, it truly helps you focus on the causeway of the trouble. For example, what's the problem? On my PC, the backup program stopped working. It didn't function or even start. I asked myself what has changed. Then I recalled a power outage the night before. That interruption was probably enough to disrupt the backup's regular schedule. The change affected the system. What did I do first? The general-purpose tried and true method to fix most computer glitches. I restarted the computer. Did it work? Yes, the backup performed flawlessly after a system reset. But my point is that the change, the power outage, caused the trouble. Evaluating change may not give you the immediate answer, but it does lead you in the right direction. The same rules apply. What's the problem? Say the keyboard isn't working. Ask yourself what's changed and think about it. Yes, you may have installed a new mouse, for example. Try to resolve the problem by restarting the computer. And yes, it fixes the problem. Sure, this keyboard problem could just be coincidental. Still, it's my experience that most of the time it's the thing that changed that tells you where to look first. My point isn't to avoid change. It's just to be alert that change can cause trouble. So what can you do? First, always save your stuff. Don't install a new program, add a peripheral, or change network settings. When you've been working on a document for 3 hours and haven't yet saved it, that's just silly. Second, ensure that you have a current backup handy. Windows 10 comes with file history. You need an external storage device to make it work, but that's not an excuse to avoid backing up your stuff. In fact, these are my third and fourth points as well. Backup is important, and fifth, just be observant. A solution can be found. And most of the time, PC trouble isn't fatal, and the woe caused by change is only temporary. One element of change you can't avoid is time. Things wear out. Hardware gets old. A spinning hard drive can last only so long before the bearings wear. Software needs updating to address bugs and fix security issues. Do not avoid an update, but understand that it involves change. Now you can't avoid time, but you can prepare for it. Finally, consider that most PCs are good for about 4 to 6 years of life. After that, consider getting a new one. That's because eventually time catches up, and the best way to fix things is to replace the entire system. A good first step toward resolving computer issues is to determine whether the source is hardware or software. This determination is not easy to make. Malfunctioning hardware can make software, particularly Windows, behave erratically. Likewise, bad software can make it appear as though hardware is to blame. The good news is that hardware issues are often detected when the computer starts or not. When hardware fails, it doesn't work and the device simply isn't available. Software errors are specific to a single program and they're consistent, almost predictable. For hardware trouble, the PC performs a power-on self-test or post. If any hardware fails to operate, a message appears on the screen, and you hear a series of beeps when the monitor fails. The post doesn't catch all hardware failures, but it's the first step. For your second hardware troubleshooting step, use the device manager. Press the Windows or keyboard shortcut to bring up a Run dialog box, and type dev management dev mgmt.msc into the box. Press the Enter key to run the device manager. Here's a list of my PC's hardware and email functioning devices are expanded with a flag, as you see here under this device. This gizmo is not behaving properly. Otherwise, everything else in the list appears to be running well, and it isn't flagged. So right now, in order to troubleshoot, what I could do is to right-click on this item and view more information by checking its properties. The drivers for this device are not installed. There's the solution. The next step would be to update the driver and proceed along those lines. This trick applies to just about anything that would appear in the same manner as shown in this list. This is your second step to troubleshooting hardware, and oftentimes the solution beyond adding a new driver would be to swap out the suspect hardware with something that does work just to ensure that it is that specific piece of hardware. For example, you could remove a mouse, keyboard, or monitor and substitute it with hardware that works. If these swapped out hardware works properly, then you know the original peripheral is what's to blame. To solve the problem, you replace the defective hardware. Internal components can't readily be swapped out, though failure of these components is a wee bit more obvious. The failed component just doesn't work. For example, a failed power supply means the PC doesn't turn on. You can try to swap out the part, though it's often more efficient to replace the failed hardware with a new component right away. Troubleshooting software involves discovering which program is causing the issue. Software issues are consistent and often predictable. You start with the operating system, Windows, then hardware drivers, and finally the programs you run. Problems with Windows are diagnosed in safe mode. If the problem persists in safe mode, it's an operating system issue. Otherwise, the problem is with a driver or other software that runs after Windows starts. Drivers are software that controls specific hardware, such as the network adapter, display adapter, and so on. Drivers can also fail. When a driver malfunctions, the hardware doesn't work properly. The solution is to update or reinstall the driver. Though if this solution fails, the hardware could be to blame. Problems with applications are specific to a single application. They are consistent. You perform the same action and get the same buggy results, a crash or some other malfunction. For a solution, you visit the developer's website for support. Only the developer can fix a software bug. I wish it were easier to determine whether a problem is hardware or software, though there are three generalities. If the problem is inconsistent, it's hardware. If the problem is consistent, it's software. And if the problem is with the PC's firmware or the motherboard circuitry, it can drive you nuts. Above all, remember that the root of all PC trouble is change. Whether you've changed hardware or software recently, this is your biggest clue to finding a hardware or software solution.